Excel formulas are a core functionality of Excel. From figuring out your home budget to making an amazing dashboard for your boss, we all need Excel formulas to get our job done. Without formulas, Excel would just be a glorified notepad. Writing formulas will always be something you do in Excel because the data you get is usually raw data and you need to make calculations on it. And that's why you should know all the tricks you can about creating formulas. This is Joseph from Spreadsheets Made Easy, and here are 7 formula tricks you probably didn't know. Number 7. Using the Formulas Evaluation tool. In this spreadsheet here, I've got a simple table that I made up of job titles, hire dates, and annual salary. I have a particular formula over here of employed for greater than 10 years. Now, looking at this manually, I could see that there are people in here who have been employed for more than 10 years. But the formula says 0. What you can do is you can click on the Formulas tab, go to Evaluate Formula, and you can actually evaluate the formula from here. What Excel does is it will take the innermost item that's going to get evaluated and work its way out, and then left to right. So what I mean is, right here we have the year of table 3 hire date. So if I evaluate that, what happens is it took all the hire dates and made it into an array. And then that's going to be passed into the year function as an array. And then the years are going to come through that. So 2010, 2012, 16, whatever, minus the year of today. Now, as I'm saying this out loud, I can already see where the mistake is. I should have put the year of today minus the year that the hire date was. Now I can see that all these numbers are going to be negative, and none of those numbers are going to be greater than 10. So when that gets evaluated, everything's going to say false. So when I multiply false by 1, you'll end up with all zeros. And by the way, if you're not familiar with that, you can check out a previous video I did on Boolean logic and why it matters. Okay, at the very end of this, we see that the evaluation comes to 0. And now we know how to fix our formula thanks to the Formula Evaluation tool. Number 6. Entering multiple formulas at the same time. In this trick, I want to take this table here, convert it back to a regular range. So I'm going to click on the design and convert it to a regular range. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to add a column because I'm going to add a formula here. The formula I'm going to add is a 10% potential bonus. Okay. Normally what you would do is you could say, okay, equals, grab the salary, multiply by 10%, and then you have a 10% potential bonus for that particular employee. Now what you would do here is you normally would just fill down. So you could just click and drag this down. You get the right formulas, but we've kind of ruined the formatting. We don't have the banded rows anymore, and that's kind of a bummer. So one way you can get around that is instead of doing this one formula and then copying down, you can highlight all these cells at once, then just hit equals. That'll bring you into the first cell of the set. Then make your formula, and before you press enter, what you're going to do is you're going to hold control and press enter. And what that'll do is it'll apply the formula moving down as if it was copying just the formula portion of it down each row. So here I had D5, here I have D6 and D7 and so on. Number 5. Show formulas on a spreadsheet. In this trick, if you have a brand new spreadsheet and you're not familiar with it, there's an easy way to find out where all the formulas are. There's 2 ways you can go about this. There's a shortcut and then there's a toolbar item. In the ribbon, you can go to formulas and click on show formulas here. And that will modify the spreadsheet, make the columns a little bit wider. And what you can do is you can kind of maneuver through the spreadsheet and then you'll see where all the formulas are because they'll be displayed as if they were text. And when you want to undo this, just simply uncheck this show formulas item here in the ribbon. And that keyboard shortcut is control and the tilde sign. The tilde sign is the one above your tab key. So that's control tilde for on and control tilde for off. Number 4, get instant help on a function you're not familiar with. In this particular trick, what I'm going to show you is if you have a function, a formula here that has a function you're not familiar with. For example, if you're not familiar with the year function here, what you can do is you can click in the parentheses of that function name. So you have the year parentheses. If you you click right after the parentheses there, what happens is you get a tooltip of that particular function that shows the name of the function and then the parameters of the function. When you click on the parameters of the function, it'll highlight the particular portion of your cell that is using that parameter. For example, this main worksheet and C5 through C11. However, what you might not realize is if you click the year, what will happen is you will get brought to the year functions help page. And you can scroll through here and read up on how the year function works and how you can use it. Number 3, finding out what cells are being used by formulas and which cells a formula uses. Okay, for this trick, if you have a formula and you're not familiar with which cells it's referencing, like you might be using a named range and you're just not sure where that lives, what you can do is you can click on that formula, go to the Formulas tab, and then click on Trace Precedence. Now this will show you from here, from this formula, which cells this formula is using. And in this particular case, we're using the higher date cells here, and we're using the today's date cell here. Now I'm going to click on Remove Arrows to remove those arrows. And I'm going to do the opposite. If I took today's date cell here, which is not a formula, and I click on Trace Dependence, that just means which formulas are using me. Click on that and you'll see which formulas are using this particular cell. I'm going to remove arrows again. I'm just going to show you one last thing here. You might be wondering, how do these arrows look if it's actually not on the same sheet, because these examples have been showing all these items in the same sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this formula here, bring it to a new sheet, paste it. I'm going to fix it real quick by doing two things. One, there's nothing in A4. We're going to replace that with today's date. Just put today, and this needs to be entered in as an array formula. So Control Shift Enter. Okay, now that this formula is working, if I'm in here and I click this formula and I click Trace Precedence, the arrow looks much different. It's black instead of blue, and it has this weird little tab here. Now you can't click on this little icon here, but what you can do is you can click on the actual arrow itself, and when you double click that, what happens is it'll show you what it's referencing, which is this formula, this workbook, main, and then these particular cells. And what you can do is you can click on that and say okay and go to that range, and it'll select that range that it's using. So that's what it looks like from a different worksheet. Number 2, switching between reference types with F4. In this trick, what I'm going to show you here is if you have a particular function that you need to lock certain references, you can do so. For example, if you have this particular cell here and you need to lock this range, what you can do is you can highlight this range here and press F4 to toggle through locking the column or the row. So when you press F4 for the first time, if there was no locking on it at all, you'll get the locking for both the column D and the row 5. Press it again, you get just the row that gets locked. Press it again, you get just the column that gets locked, and press it again and you get no locking. So if you needed to do this for the entire thing, we can start combining these tricks here, and what we can do is highlight all these cells here, come to the formula bar, highlight this here and just press F4 until you get what you need, which in this case, let's say we wanted to do the column gets locked, and then Control Enter, and they all have the column locked now in their particular formulas. By the way, one last thing about this, if you were typing the formula from scratch and you typed in D5 for example, even though you just typed D5, you can press F4 from here and get the same locking mechanism. So it's just something real quick to let you know about. If you have like a range, so D4 to D5 to D10 or whatever, press F4, that'll only lock the particular item that you're working with, which in this case is the second part of the range, not the entire range. If you want, you'd have to highlight the entire range and press F4, and you can toggle through the entire ranges set there. Before I get to the number 1 formula trick, I want to add an honorable mention here, and that is using AltEnter to add some extra space if you're going to look at a formula that's kind of complicated. What do I mean by that? Let's go ahead and take a look at this real quick. So I have this formula here, and let's say this isn't too complicated yet, but let's say I added one more condition here that said that the person has been here for over 10 years and their annual salary is greater than 70,000. Okay. Now, what I can do is each one of these open and close parentheses between the multiplication symbol is a condition. What I can do is I can expand the formula bar here by just hovering right over this area until I get this particular mouse cursor, which is an up and down arrow. Click and drag down a little bit to make some space. What I could do here is I can jump right here, right after the sum, open parentheses, and press Alt-Enter, and that'll create a new line here, and I can actually separate out each particular condition here with Alt-Enter like that. So what I have now is I have each condition in its own line. So I have this particular condition, and then this particular condition, and then this. This is actually really useful if you have a nested if statement, and you can actually take a look at this much more closely. And by the way, if you Control-Shift-Enter this, it will save it this way. But this might get confusing if you are looking at a formula and it looks like this, and you're like, this does not make any sense at all. How on earth could this work? If you ever run into that problem, just expand out the formula bar, because you never know. Someone might know about this trick and someone might just use it on you. Number 1, evaluating a formula with F9. Okay, I know I already went over the formulas evaluation tool earlier. However, I want to show you this particular way of evaluating a formula because it gives you more control over how you evaluate the formula. For example, this formula here has been wrong the whole video, and it has been bothering me actually the whole video. I'd like to fix it, so let's go ahead and do that using the formula evaluation keyboard shortcut F9. The way you do that is you click on the formula you want, then you click in the formula bar and highlight the section you will want to evaluate. Now you have to be careful here, because if you're going to evaluate a function, you need to highlight the function name and then the opening and closing parentheses and everything within it before you press F9. So I'm going to show you real quick. If I hit G8 and I highlight G8 and press F9, it evaluates to what G8 is, which is the serial date of 43102, which just evaluates to the date of January 2nd, 2018. And if I highlight year and the opening and closing parentheses there and press F9, I get that it's 2018. I'm going to escape and just do that one more time. So I'm going to click and highlight the year here and press F9, and now you see I get this 2018. Now if I click in here the table, the higher date, and highlight that section, I can hit F9 here and get all the serial dates here. And then if I click on year and highlight all of that and press F9, I get an array of all the dates. Now as I'm looking at this, I can pretty much see what's about to happen because I see the years that are going to be subtracted by 2018, and I'm going to check if that is greater than or equal to 10, which we know it's not because this is the largest year in the group. So when I go ahead and do that, I highlight the array and then minus 2018, and that'll give me a new array of all of the results. And then what I can do is I can highlight that and attach the logical operator to it, and then press F9 there, and then I have an array of all these falses. And then I can take that and multiply by 1. Now I have an array of zeros, and the result of the sum of that is going to obviously be 0, which is why it's 0. Okay, now let's just fix this real quick and reevaluate. So I'm clicking here, I'm going to take this part out, move it to the front, and let's see here. Okay, and let's evaluate this now. So we have the year minus this year here. So let's just go ahead and highlight all of this now that since we've seen what it would do, and I can F9 that. Now I get the true numbers that I want to evaluate, and I can hook that up against the logical operator of greater than or equal to 10. Press F9 there, and I have falses and trues in here. And then we know from another video that I've done that this will create sort of a count function for you. By the way, if you're not familiar with how this works, check out the other video I did. I'll put a link in the description, and you can see how you can use sum to create a count function. Okay, and now I have all these guys here, and now I see that there are 4 employees that were employed in the last 10 years. Now, I changed the formula and I evaluated it, but I didn't actually press enter. So if I press enter from here, it's not going to take the formula that I had, but rather what's in here right now. So if I press enter, it's just going to be 4 because it equals 4. So I'm just going to undo that. I'm going to fix this again. Bring it over here and then hit Control Shift Enter. And there we go. Now I have the right answer, and I did it using the evaluation keyboard shortcut of F9, which is very handy. Alright, and that does it for the 7 formula tricks you probably didn't know. If you liked this video, if you learned something, please give this video a thumbs up. If you're new here, please subscribe. If there's a formula trick you thought I missed, go right ahead and add it to the comments and I'll be happy to read it. And I'll see you in the next video.